All right, so thank you everyone for coming. I do appreciate it. Those who I forced to come and those who are coming of their own volition. Either way. If you don't know me, my name's Noelle. I'm the Teen Librarian here at Merced County Library, and this is our second author event. This year we are featuring Allison Saft. Oh, thank you. Claps for everyone. This is our second author event. This year we are featuring Allison Saft. This is Allison. Give a big round of applause. So Allison is a young adult and newly adult fantasy writer. She has 4 published books. Yes. And I have read half of those, so hey, I'm on my way. So I guess tell us a little about yourself, and then we can dive into the questions, yeah?
Sure, yeah, okay.
Yes, I think, wow, what else is there to say? Hello, I'm Allison Saft, writer of 4 books, apparently, somehow. I have another one coming out in February.
I didn't know that.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, yeah.
No, I do know that.
It's the Tinkerbell one.
Tinkerbell one.
Yes. If any of you like Secret of the Wings, then this is the
I have the arc at
prequel.
home, and I forgot it. I'm literally so disappointed in myself right now.
That's okay. I can. We'll talk.
Thank you.
Where was I? Oh, yes. I live in Palo Alto. I have a dog. She is an Italian Greyhound. Her name is Marzipan. She has sweaters.
Oh, where is she? Where is Mars?
I know I should have brought her, but you know, she is deep under the covers with the sweater. Yeah. I think that's it. Oh yes, I do circus in my spare time when I'm not writing.
Wow, that was unexpected. I love that. I love fun facts.
I like circus, like like the curtains.
Oh,
People usually,
I see.
the
Okay.
fabric. Yeah.
Why not? Very crafty. Lovely. All right, so we're just gonna dive into the questions. There will be a point near the end where we will demand audience participation. And when we get to that point, I will definitely let you guys know. But first question is, when did you decide to become an author, and how did you work that into preparing for like your adult life?
Okay, I don't think I knew that I wanted to become an author until I was already an adult.
That's super cool, though.
I did write a lot as a kid. I think I started when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. Neopets, I don't know if okay, yeah, all right, we got some nods in the audience. So I started out kind of on the roleplay forums and like guilds on Neopets. The Warrior Cats series by Aaron Hunter was
Love those.
yes,
Okay, that's what got me into reading actually.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
If you haven't read these books, I think they're still actually being published.
I think so, yeah.
There's like 400 of these things.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Crazy.
For a book about cats, it's very like dense political fantasy, really.
Yes.
Yes, very intricate lore, betrayals, murder,
Yes.
good stuff.
But with cats.
But with cats.
So it makes it like 100% more interesting, I promise.
So yes, I Warrior Cats, Redwall, those were, that was my thing when I was a kid. And then when I was a teenager, I was more into like embarrassing things like Naruto, and that was kind of like what I liked to write about. But anyway, I went to college thinking I wanted to be a professor of English rather than a writer. I thought I must set these childish things aside and give up writing fiction. But I went onto my master's program, and about halfway through I was like, dear God, actually, I don't think I want to be a professor. I think I would rather write fiction than analyze fiction. Entertained the idea briefly of doing an MFA, realized short stories are actually really, really hard to write, and I was no good at it. So working my first corporate job out of college, I would kind of write. I kind of researched what it took to get into fiction writing and kind of just wrote in my downtime.
That's super cool though.
Yeah.
Yeah. A quick audience question. Who here is an author, wants to become an author, writes in their spare time? Raise your hand, do not be shy. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, what do you do when a new idea for a book hits you while you're currently working on a project, or does that like never happen and you're just like, when I'm focused, I'm focused?
It's more so the latter. I kind of consider myself like, they say elephants have like a gestational period of like 3 years. chapters or so. It's not that long. It's very long though. That's kind of like how I am with book ideas. I usually can only work on one thing at a time. But lately, actually, it has been happening. I did get a new idea in the middle of working on something. So what I do is usually I just keep a separate document of like any ideas that I have. I just put them in that document and
You just put them in like a little box.
a little box to be opened in a few months when I can think about you. But right now I'm on deadline and I have to finish a book by January. So I'm trying not to get distracted.
I feel like I have ADHD brain, so like I have like 5 ideas at once. There is no such thing as a singular idea. No, it's really not. Because it's not all 5 ideas 100%. It's like one idea at like 15%, and then it trickles down. So what is your favorite character type to write and why? And then kind of on top of that, what is your least favorite character type to write, or are they all just like amazing and awesome?
I think my favorite character type to write is mean people. I love to, I think...
So do you like fantasize about just being mean to people and you just put that in your fiction?
I guess so. Maybe it's more like the Jungian shadow or whatever, like the aspects of ourselves that we like cannot acknowledge in order to function in this civilized world we live in or whatever. Yes. I don't know, I find writing these sorts of characters very cathartic. Like the protagonist of my adult fantasy is just this horrible, bitter, mean-spirited person.
She's amazing and I love her.
Thank you, I love her too. But she
anyone
just...
who's read her adult fantasy, the main character, peak. I love her so
Thank
much.
you. Yeah, she just says kind of what the cruelest possible thing that she can think of. I don't know, it's kind of great.
It's like low-key funny.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like you're like, oh wow, I didn't know she would say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just there's, I don't know, someone who will just say what maybe shouldn't be said but does anyway. But on the other side, I think nice characters are the hardest to write in a way. I think it's difficult sometimes to maybe portray kindness and gentleness in a way that feels as immediately engaging to people, or a way that...
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know, like the book I'm working on right now, it's a kind of another ensemble cast, and it's the nice character who's really just giving me a ton of trouble. Like, why are you like this? I don't know, maybe it's that. It's like, I can almost understand why people let themselves get hard, like angry a little easier than people who are more gentle.
Yep. We're getting deep in this author talk here, okay? Okay, so this kind of goes more into your writing style. Every author is different, from what I understand. So what is your writing process like? Do you write scenes chronologically? Do you write scenes out of order? Because like I know when I found out that movies, how they did those out of order, that like blew my mind, how they film scenes out of order. That like didn't make sense to me. As a child, I was like, no, it has to go from start to finish. So, and do you plan, or I know there's like a term, a pantser. Do you pants?
I do not pants.
You do not
I
pants,
do not.
okay.
I am a pretty meticulous plotter. I make like an outline scene by scene of everything that's going to happen in that scene. Well,
I respect you so much.
Oh, thank you. But I have to say that I'm a really bad outliner. Like, I will make this detailed outline, but it's very rare that I will follow it completely.
But that's fair though.
Right, like
You know?
I think characters can surprise us, because I don't, something significant should happen in this conversation will typically be the outline, and then something significant will happen, and whoa, I didn't know what it would be, so then it changes the course of what's going to happen in subsequent scenes.
It's like you surprise yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Or, you plan for a conversation to happen at some point, and then the characters are being more vulnerable or more closed off than you need them to be, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I have to run with what I have. So, but I do write in order. I agree with you. I think writing scenes out of order is like people who do that must be working on they must see the code in the Matrix.
I don't know. That's like crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So when you were younger, like maybe 5 years ago. What authors inspired you, and then what authors inspire you today? I know usually when I ask this question, everyone's like, I don't know a single author my entire life. I don't read, what are words? But if you can think of like, whether it's you were a kid, you were a teen, you were in college, like what authors kind of inspired you to either become a writer or to really get into kind of that headspace?
Yeah, totally. I think there's like a couple phases of authors who have inspired me. I mean, like I mentioned, when I was a kid, it was very much these talking animal books seem to be that, like Warrior Cats, Redwall.
Is that mice or rats?
They're mice. They're little Abbey mice. It's very, very charming. Brian Jacques, he
yes.
writes about food in a way you just won't believe. You'll just want to be at this little mouse feast. They're little elderberry cordials and whatnot. It's adorable. But I think, yeah, I've always been very inspired by, shonen in particular. I think that kind of comes through in my work, all of these themes about war and the power of friendship and love and stuff like that. But I think the books that made me really want to be an author were kind of when I just graduated college and I was sad and wondering what to do with my life. It was kind of a really nice time because I wasn't on any bookish social media. I didn't know what the buzzy books were. I didn't know what was coming out. I just went to the bookstore and I walked around and pulled the books off the shelf that looked interesting to me. And at the time, I think it was probably 2017, it was like Margaret Rogerson, Enchantment of Ravens remains one of my absolute favorite books. It's just, it's so good, just so whimsical, so delightful. Becca Ross's debut novel, The Queen's Rising, I believe. Melissa Bashardoust, Girls Made of Snow and Glass. Just these, like, I was drawn to very whimsical sorts of fairy tale type books. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, today I draw a lot of, I feel like the 19th century, a lot of 19th century writers kind of captured like what I hope to do in my work. Like Jane Austen and George Eliot have just this way of looking at the ridiculousness of people that just really appeals to me with every book I write. I just try to write the most ridiculous and difficult to like people, and it's almost like a challenge to myself to see if I can convince readers.
This is a confession. I only recently was exposed to Pride and Prejudice, the movie.
Wow.
Thank you, friends. Oh, I loved it. No, it was amazing. So, I think I would have had to leave if I didn't like it, you know? Yeah, so, okay. So, what's the most challenging thing about writing in the young adult field? Because I feel like, so, I'm the teen librarian, so I am exposed to a lot of young adult writers and a lot of young adult like authors and stuff like that, and I feel like each writer is going to come across the difficulty in remaining original is very like apparent in there, because each book has to have like their own like thing, you know.
Yes.
And so I have good yeah. I stopped it. I have good reflexes. Speaking of cats, so what do you think is the most difficult thing for you when it comes to writing in the young adult field? Because soon to be four of your books that you've written are going to be in that genre. Age range.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I feel like I almost come at it from like the business side, because young adult is a really weird category at the moment. It's relatively new. And it's for teenagers, but at the same time, publishing is kind of pushing authors by their business decisions to write books that are mostly for 20-year-olds or like even 30-year-olds. So I think it's this really, I don't know, it's tough. It's like we want to stay true to the roots and write books that resonate with our actual audience, teenagers, but it's like these adults are the people who have the money to buy them. So it's tough. I mean, I think for me it's just telling stories that feel that's the challenging part, is like telling these stories that feel relatively universal. But I think that exact quality is what has made young adults so popular among various age groups. I mean, they're fun, they're fast-paced, about finding your place in the world. So yeah.
I also feel like young adult books have this really great quality of being really diverse, where a lot of other genres have taken a long time to get like that. I feel like young adult really kind of picked pace more than a lot of other genres did. So that's really special, because I feel like more people can see themselves in young adult novels because of the diversity, which kind of makes it more universal.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna delve into her new release, A Dark and Drowning Tide. What inspired you to kind of delve into adult fantasy, the adult genre?
It was kind of an accident. I think I guess it was I turned in my second book and I had some time and I was like, okay, what am I going to work on next? So I started putting together a proposal, which for anyone who's not familiar, it's generally an outline and maybe 3 chapters that I sent to my agents to say, hey, do you think that this is any good? Can we sell this? And they read it and they were like, we don't know about this whole thing that you have going on with rival lawyers, like teenagers lawyers, maybe not. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So I went back to the drawing board and kind of came up with a new idea that ended up being A Dark and Drowning Tide. I turned it into them and they're like, we love this, but actually this probably is not young adult and you should just maybe commit to aging this up. I mean, it's a very big world, just dense politics, murder, kind of more ambiguous sort of ending. I mean, it's not particularly hopeful. I could probably...
Don't give it away.
Yeah, I won't give it away. I could talk at length of like the difference between, as I just mentioned, the difference between YA and adult, but I think that is one of the key things is like giving readers a gentle place to land. A Dark and Drowning Tide is not the most gentle book at times, shall we say. So.
If you haven't already read it, I do recommend it. It is very good. I almost read it in one sitting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, okay, I'm one of those people that like, if I like something to the detriment of my parents, sorry, you had to spend so much money, I will sit and I will like literally just like camp out on the couch and I'll read like for 4 or 5 hours.
Oh,
And that's what I did with A Dark and Drowning Tide.
Oh, honor. Thank
It was really, I really liked it. The characters were probably like the main, not that the plot wasn't interesting,
No,
but I
but
really
the
enjoyed the relationship between the characters. It gave, I'm trying to come up with a good description. It was kind of giving like Death on the Nile a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so. Okay, so did you learn any fun facts while writing? Because I know a lot of times authors will go into these like rabbit holes of interesting facts. Did you learn anything that you're like, oh, I didn't know that before? That is appropriate to share.
Yeah.
So many fun facts. I mean, most of my book, actually I think all of my published books right now are pretty loosely, like, they're pretty much historical fantasies. Like, they don't take place in our world, but they're very much inspired by real world history and politics.
Yeah.
So, I mean, gosh, every book has this whole dossier of useless facts and information that never made it into the final draft. Like, A Fragile Enchantment is sort of my Regency book. There's so many facts in my head about clothes, roles of various servants in the household, how you properly address a Regency gentleman and the monarch, the difference between Your Highness and Your Majesty. Movies always get this wrong, and it makes me mad every time now.
Oh no, so you did that to yourself, right?
I did.
Once you noticed it, now you can't
I know I
unnose
can't
it.
unsee it. I mean,
No.
Down Comes the Night has a medical science-based magic system, so I did an unnecessary amount of research into what all of your bones and stuff are called. Poisons, how to develop antidotes, all sorts of things. At Far Wilder Magic, I learned way more about hunting than I probably ever wanted to know, but yeah, now I know about fox hunts.
Oh, there you go. All right, thank you. Okay, now this is really, I don't know if you have an answer for this, but how do you select the names of your characters? The bane of every single author.
Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like naming a child.
It really is, yeah.
Because like, you just look through websites of names and just keep applying them to your character until it feels right. I don't think there's like any science to it. It's like, no, you're not this, you're this.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So sadly, I don't have a very scientific answer for you.
So vibes.
Vibes.
Yes.
Vibes is the answer.
Vibes
Vibes is
are
the
how we
answer
choose
for
this, yeah.
most things.
Yeah.
Plot decisions, character decisions, etc.
That's a fair answer. Yeah. So now we're gonna go into the more fun questions. So, if anyone has a good answer to these questions, you are more than welcome to like put your little hand up. What is, and you know what? Okay, because some of these are a little embarrassing. I will answer them as well. What is the last book to make you cry? Do you ever laugh out loud while reading, or do you just blow air out of your nose like everyone else? So the last book to make me cry, actually it was about, I want to say a week and a half ago. Okay, I'm sorry, can you tell me the name of it again? It's the grandmother one that you told me.
Oh, my grandmother asked me to tell you. I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay, so it's by Frederick Bachman, and it's called...
Were you talking about the long...
No,
the way home gets longer and longer.
Yeah.
That one every morning or whatever.
Yeah, every morning the way home gets longer and longer.
Grandfather.
Yeah. I sobbed. And it was at night, and everyone had gone to bed, and I'm like muffling my sobs into my hand, because I'm like, I'm trying not to wake up my dog. And that was like a week and a half ago, so I'm a crier, if you don't know.
Me too.
Oh, you know what? Thank you. And I do laugh out loud, although it's very rare. Like, you have to, usually it's manga that gets me. Like, I'll be reading manga, and yeah, something will just catch me. Funny bone.
Yes, I'm also a crier. I think the last book to make me tear up was Intermezzo by Sally Rooney.
Oh yeah, that's the one that she just...
Yeah, it just came out.
Okay.
But it was more like an aesthetic kind of like
Okay.
crying.
That's fair.
The last book to make me sob is The Scorpio Races by Maggie Seafoot. I read that every year, and every time I sob.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my favorite book of all time.
Really?
Scorpio Races. Yeah.
Okay, that is a very niche book to say
It
is
is
your
very
favorite.
niche.
Yeah.
I can't pitch it because like, what do you? It's a book about carnivorous horses that eat people. But hold on.
Hold on, hear me out.
Yeah. It's really, yeah, exactly. I swear, just give it a chance. And I do laugh out loud. I laugh out loud pretty often. Actually, I was listening on an audiobook
Oh, you know what?
on my ride here. I'm reading Erasure by Percival Everett right now, and my goodness, that man is so funny. The joke is not funny out of context and not appropriate, so I won't share it. But
You'd have
yeah,
to be there.
you had to be there.
Okay. Do you stay up into all hours of the night to read or finish books? And if you do you remember the last book you did that with? I usually don't, because I have to work and I don't hate myself. Although, to be fair, on the weekends, that's kind of all bets are off. But yeah, I usually don't stay up too late.
Yeah, me neither. I think, because if I'm really, I'll just fall asleep.
Yeah.
Especially with audio. I do most of my reading on audiobooks right now, and that's just very inconvenient when you fall asleep listening to an audiobook, so I just try not to put myself in that situation.
Yeah. Someone close to me just did that, and she's like, I lost my place, I don't know where it was.
Oh my gosh, it was like 45 minutes ago.
Yeah. So what is the best book that you've read in the past year? And now that I ask this question, I don't remember my answer. So I'll think of mine.
Okay.
If anyone else wants to give a best book that they've read this year answer, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But do you have one?
I do, but if anyone else wants to share, yeah.
It's because it's a YA book, so it works. Icarus by K. Agra.
That one was
I've
really
heard really
good.
good things about that.
So
Icarus by K. Agra.
It goes really fast too.
Okay, I'll check
Yeah.
it out. And
Yep.
For me, it was the Blood Use. I read it for.
Alana K. Arnold.
I honestly am bad at remembering authors' names.
It's Alana K. Arnold.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
It's with It's for Battle of the Books
Yes,
this year.
yes, that's why I read it.
Mhm.
And it also made me sob really. It was really bad at the
Those are
end.
the best, though.
But those are the
Yeah,
best though, because
exactly.
you remember it more if you have like that emotional connection to it.
Mhm, for sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I read James Islington's The Will of the Many.
Oh,
I thought that was tremendous. First of,
is that a new release this year, or is
I read it this year.
it's new to you? There we go. Did anyone else want to?
Okay, I'll share mine. My favorite this year, I think, was The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I also
know.
sobbed. All of these, yeah, I mean, there's a theme here. But that one also was not a sad crying. It was I've never,
Cathartic?
yeah, very cathartic. And I never, like, such a good title drop.
That
Really
is.
pays off, yeah.
Okay,
Oh no, it's fine. I still don't remember, so I mean, I can steal yours because I did read it because of you. Icarus by Kate Ankrum was really good.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. If you could write any animal into one of your books, what would you write? That was a weird question but if you could write any animal into your books, what would it be? Mythical or not? So it could be anything.
Oh no, it's a hard one. I feel like I have to put, I like to put dogs in books. But I feel like dragons are so big right now.
They
I
are.
want to put a dragon in a book too.
No, be part of the crew.
Yeah, I want to be part of the crew. Maybe a unicorn. That would also be cute.
You know, I feel like unicorns are like underappreciated.
They are.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and they've got such good lore.
More
And,
unicorns.
Yeah, more unicorns. Any aspiring
Yes.
writers out there want to see your unicorn books.
All right. So when people ask you for book recommendations, do you recommend your own books? You're like, absolutely yes. You should read A Dark and Drowning Tide. It was just released.
No. It's so embarrassing. Like, I prefer in my, like, normal person life if no one knows I write books. That's ideal, yes.
You're like, I'm not an author. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, it's like, what do you do? I'm an author. Oh, what do you write? Have you written anything I've read? And
That's like the worst question.
I'm like,
though.
well, can you list all of the books you've read and I'll tell you if any of them are mine? Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe. No, just kidding. I don't say that. That would be so rude. I think about it though. What was even the question? No, I don't recommend my own books. I try not to, unless it's on social media, maybe. Like, because then I'm professional, like at work. Unless you're like on your professional social media, you should read my book that I just wrote. Spend money on me, please. While writing, do you snack or listen to music? And if so, what do you munch on or listen to? So I know this is like I act like it's like this big, huge debate. It's really not. It's in my head. So there's like this thing where people either need kind of like white noise in the back. Like when I need to do something, but I can't listen to words. I listen to like movie scores. Shout out to How to Train Your Dragon. That has gotten me through some studies. Yeah. And then I like to eat whenever, so that's not really a question for me. I know when you're writing, your focus might need to be like on your computer or not, I don't know. But what is your preference, I guess? Okay, yes. I'm with you. Music, I mean, I can sometimes listen to music with words, but not typically. I feel like my usual is, video game soundtracks or movie scores are very, I mean, like the atmosphere. Baldur's Gate 3 has been really doing it for me lately.
Yeah.
But also I can go for a lo-fi beats type playlist.
I'll actually do that in the teen center every once in a while.
Yeah,
So when we're doing like
it's
a study
nice.
time or something, I'll just put on lo-fi. It's
It
nice
gets
to
the
have.
job done.
It's nice to have it because it's like noise but not annoying.
Yeah, it's like not
Yeah.
really music, but
Yes.
it is music,
It
but
is,
it's
but it's
not
not.
music. You know what I mean? And then snacks.
This is really important.
I'm usually like a multiple bev kind of girl, like a
Yes,
3
100%.
bev kind of girl, like a water, an interesting water, and a tea, and then maybe some chocolate or popcorn sometimes, but not really.
Yeah. I also have multiple beverages at once. I'm usually a water, a soda, and then maybe something else. I like Dr. Pepper. Shout out. They should sponsor me. Sponsor Merced County. No, me specifically. Just Noelle. And do you ever create playlists for your books? I know this is like a really, it's a new trend. Because I think before, like 5 years ago, it like didn't exist. So do you create playlists for your books, or do you have like certain things that you listen to get in the mood for your books?
Not typically. I don't do it on my own, but to your point, like publishers or other companies like book boxes will ask for them, so I make them after the fact. Artists, I commission a lot of art for my books too, and artists will sometimes ask for, in particular, like character songs. So for the
I didn't think about that. That's really cool though.
it's interesting. So for the book I'm working on right now, I commissioned some art to motivate myself, and she asked for like 5-song playlist for each character, so I did that. It was an interesting exercise, yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna go into bookish hot takes. So this is really gonna make or break. I might have to ask some of you in the audience to leave. No. Okay, so this is actually kind of funny by what you said earlier. Anyway, so number one, not every book needs a happy ending. Thoughts?
Agree.
Okay, what do we think? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Now, I will say there's a caveat to this. Every romance needs a happy ending. Because that is the rule. Yeah. I judge books by their cover.
Like, yes.
I do too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
By show of hands, who actually judges a book by their cover?
We all do it.
We all do
okay,
it.
we got one naysayer in the front.
Sometimes.
He's like, oh, I never.
fantasy.
Yeah.
So if it's fantasy, if it looks like a fantasy book, I'll like read through and see what it's about. If it's not, and I'm like just skip over it.
Oh, fair enough. No, but like low-key, if the book has an ugly cover, no, really, I'm just like, I don't know. Okay, so movie or TV book covers, yay or nay?
Nay.
I would agree.
Have y'all seen the Wicked one? I mean, it's not a bad cover. It's just like, oh god, it's the musical and the book are so different. What are we doing?
I would agree. I remember when they started doing that for like all the young adult books that were getting turned into movies, and every single, because this was like what I would say between 2010 and 2015, that it was like really big. And every single time I would go into our Barnes & Noble, rip, because ours just closed. I know. And I would have like a little mini tantrum inside of me because I saw it on the shelf, and it was just so frustrating. Because I think a little bothersome about that is they'll stop printing the normal cover, and then they'll only have the cover that I don't want there. In case you haven't noticed, I have a really big opinion on this. Listen, this is just so I can tell my opinions.
I have my opinion on what I think is one of the worst ones, because I feel like my opinion on that is affected by whether the movie or whatever was really bad.
Yeah.
And mine is Aragon. Like,
Oh,
the movie was not the best, and that cover to me is the worst.
I would say when the Percy Jackson movie came out, that really, really bothered me. Because the movie, low-key, no. Okay, I will say on its own, the vibes are there. If you compare it to the book, no, it's awful. The show, however, the new show, fantastic. It is so good. I don't know if you've watched it. Have you read the Percy Jackson?
I know. It's a crime. Jail for me.
Okay, so you can see yourself out. So I don't know if there are any Percy Jackson fans, but if you've read the books and seen the show, I will say it is pretty accurate, and the changes that they've made to the show make sense in terms of like production, because they sometimes have to make changes for reasons. It has made sense in my totally professional, non-directorial experience. Yeah. Okay, how do you feel about annotating or marking up books? And this would include like writing and stuff like that. And this is assuming that the book owners are doing this to their own book, because if you started marking someone else's book, that would be rude, right? Yeah.
I don't mind that. I think that's fine. I know some people have very strong opinions about it, but I don't see anything wrong necessarily with. I like seeing it in my own books when people like tag me in photos with things highlighted or drawn in. It's very cute. I used to annotate my books, not so much anymore though.
Yeah. I feel like it does make the reading process a little longer if you annotate, although it's kind of fun to go back and kind of see what you thought. Usually, so some people annotate like academically and they're like, oh my gosh, the imagery here. What I do is I'm like, this character sucks. And that's what I'll like write, just like my internal comments. Oh, no, seriously, you're joking, but that is seriously what I write. I'll be like, lols. I might even write swear words. Ooh. Whoa. Okay, so this is where I do want to get audience participation. I am very curious because everyone is going to have a different answer to this question. What is a trope that you feel is overused or cliche?
should I speak? I think that all tropes can be done well. Like I don't think necessarily there's anything that like shouldn't be done as cliche overused. At the same time, I would love to see a different type of love interest in general, in YA fantasy and like adult romantasy in particular. Can we have
whatever do you mean?
Whatever do I mean?
Whatever do you mean, Allison?
He might, I don't know, he might wield shadows. He might have a cold and brooding exterior, but a heart of gold. He definitely has a tragic past. I love this man. We all love this man. But at the same time, I would love to see a different type of man. Or woman, which is why I wrote A Dark and Droning Tide in part, to put that character type as a woman instead of a man. So.
I would agree. Does anyone else have something that they want to say? I knew you would. Yeah.
Enemies to lovers that are definitely not enemies
Ooh.
and are definitely only ever lovers.
You know what? That is so true. I feel like people misconstrue. I have this issue, not to knock publishing, but like sometimes I have this issue. Okay, cool. Okay, great. Thank you for giving me permission. We're gonna be here for another 3 hours, folks. So whenever publishing does, they're trying to advertise the book, right? And they're like, okay, it's like these 4 tropes. And then you read the book and you're like, it definitely wasn't. I don't know what trope you think that means, but it's not what it is. Like whenever they do enemies to lovers, what they really mean is they had like a really weird, contentious meeting. And then afterwards they're like, wait, you're like kind of cute though. Like, and that's what they mean when they say enemies to lovers. When what we want is like enemies. But yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Slow burn, but only when it's done right. Like,
Okay.
like you meet the person and then it's just the whole book is nothing, and then at the very end they start making out. It's like,
I would say that, yeah. I could see, I feel like if that's not your vibe, I would see how
I
that's
love slow burn, but if only if it's done right. It's very few books that I've read that's where
I feel like there's a specific type of slow burn. Because you're like, okay, I want slow burn, but not like 2 miles an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, a little faster than that. Yeah, Kellen?
Sorry, I had an idea and then it just like completely left my head.
Oh, no, I can talk for hours, so no worries.
Yeah,
While you're
okay.
thinking of that, okay. I will say what I think one of the more irritating tropes that I see is when they, and this is really common in YA books, which I don't know why, when they make siblings hate each other. It happens so often. It is very niche. And I have started noticing it. Once I started noticing it, I got really upset when siblings did not like each other. I was like, why do you hate your sister? Why do you hate your brother? Why? Because I don't know why, but they did it in such a way that made it really irritating, which didn't happen in your book, in A Far Wilder Magic. I have to say that family's really cute. Like, so whenever they had that, I always got really frustrated because I felt like it was very, it didn't make sense. It was just like, oh, I don't like my sibling because they're ugly or something like that. And you're like, okay. And you're like, dang, okay. When I feel like it would be so much of a better, if the relationship was more nuanced, where they're siblings, so obviously they like low-key hate each other, but they love each other at the same time. You know, that's the whole point of siblings, right? Yeah. Does anyone, yes.
So I love a morally gray, like male main character, but what I would love to see more of, and maybe I just don't know enough, I don't have enough recommendations, but I would love to see the female character be the one who, like, I love a, badass female character too, but like I want the morally gray, like, villain female be the main person.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I feel like there's not enough of that. Sorry, excuse me. You had your hand up.
I think, like, when it's like the characters, like, oh, all these bad things happen to them, like, they can do so much and be bullied. That doesn't happen in school. Like, the way they're talking about how they get bullied, that's not realistic. They tell you that people spit on them in the classroom, like, no, it doesn't happen. Like, that's not realistic.
There is no spitting in schools. I just want to make that clear. You're like, that's not accurate bullying. Let me show you what is accurate.
They need to do their research on how people bully each other nowadays.
Okay, so we need a 21 Jump Street, some authors. right? Okay, I will say another thing. This isn't a cliche or a trope, but this is a thing that I see because I read YA is when authors try and write slang. And I literally have to put the book down and I'm like, do I need to contact this author personally? And just be like, listen, I am not a teenager, but dear Lord, can I please get you in contact with one? Like, please. I might have volunteers, like, they will tell you.
The authenticity reader.
They need literally just like some Gen Z authenticity readers. I feel like that would make stuff so much easier. Yeah.
How do you feel about the sci-fi worlds where they have fake slang to avoid cursing?
So it depends because fantasy books do this too. They have what was one? Okay, I'm sorry to bring you up again. What was the one that it was the one that you really didn't like? Oh no, that doesn't narrow it down. No, I'm sorry, I'm calling you out. It's the one that's really popular right now.
Oh, Powerless.
Yes.
I feel so bad. Yeah, but like
What was the
name like of the speedy people or flashes and then she like
No, what was
she's like,
the-
oh, like plague's sake.
That's
and she's
what it
like,
was.
It's killed so many people, how dare you use that as a
Yeah.
card?
So the thing that I will not care for in books, now that you bring up like the sci-fi, like the fake slang, is when, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, whatever, it almost doesn't really matter if they do it and it's cringy just on its own. Like, I know a lot of times in like, whether it's Percy Jackson or in books where there's like multi-god religions, they'll say oh gods instead of oh god, and I'm like, that's pretty standard. I don't feel like that's any new, like that's not new, that's not trying to like change the game or anything. But when they say oh for plague's sake, and you're like, okay.
Just to clarify, I have nothing against the author of Powerless. Anyone who likes it is
No, Lauren Roberts is actually a delight. She's very nice.
everyone's
Yeah.
valid.
Yeah.
I have another one.
Oh no,
Okay.
please speak your truth.
I feel like this is more of a pet peeve for me, but the chosen one trope.
Oh, you know what? That has actually become more and more of like a thing where people will not like it. I've seen that because they
Yeah.
hate how
It drives the entire plot though.
Yes.
It's only
It's very
just about
contrived,
the
yeah.
chosen one.
Mhm.
And then there's no plot. It's just this one person who has to do everything in this like 2 days.
Yeah. I feel like I could probably name 10 books right now that have that
I can
plot.
name like 12.
Yeah. So
I can name 2 series actually.
So that was a really big thing like 2010, between like 2010 2015, because like Hunger Games, Divergent, that kind of thing, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson,
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. We could
All
go
the
on.
Gordon books.
We could go on for hours. But I feel like more recently it's become less chosen one and more just like,
This one guy.
sorry bud.
This one guy is a god and he could do literally anything he wants. And he's the one that's supposed to save us.
Yeah.
From someone who isn't actually inherently bad.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah. I get it though, because that's a really that is a trope that a lot of people have discovered that they don't care for. Yeah.
So 2 things now actually. One, with the chosen ones, I think I like it as long as they still face adversity, like throughout the book.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or any story really.
Mhm.
And then the trope I was thinking of earlier, I really like just the main character goes on like a long adventure that they change over time. But I want it with more of like a morally flawed character. I feel like it's always goody two shoes most of the time.
Okay. So we want more criminals as main characters. That's what I just heard. Okay.
Kinda like that, but like more like criminals who go on an adventure, like
Mhm.
like exploring. I feel like that doesn't happen much. It's always like the goody two shoes who go on an
Yeah,
adventure.
that's fair. Yeah. Honestly, I agree with you. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
We need more
if
misadventures. Like, Finn from Adventure Time. We need more of that in books.
Bring back the picaresque.
all right. And okay, so another question. What is a trope that you want to see more of that you don't see enough? You're like, where is it? I don't see her.
I don't know.
Honestly, you could just name a favorite one.
A favorite, I mean, I like forced proximity of
Love
any
it.
sort, really. Yeah. Just two people who don't like each other so much being forced to work together toward a common goal. Gets me every time.
I'm a, which anyone who is aware of me in terms of friendship knows this about me. I really, really like found family. That is like my favorite trope of all time, because I like, like Star Wars or whatever, when they're forced proximity, but like platonically instead of romantically. That's kind of my jam. That's my jam. Fills me up with all gooey inside. Nope. Okay. Does anyone else have a favorite? Yeah.
I love triangles, but actually like triangles, not angles.
Ooh, period.
And it doesn't have to be,
100%.
romantic. I think the best one I've seen was platonic was Clockwork Prince and Angel series. Just a platonic relationship of friendship and camaraderie was fantastic. But I do like more less angles and more actual triangles. But
Yeah.
I'd like to see that more.
Speaking of books that make me cry, that series wrecked me. As a teen, 16-year-old Noelle could not handle it. Yeah, she was destroyed at the end of that one.
Why do the two rivals have to be so mean to each other?
I
Why can't
know.
they just be nice?
Just be friends. Why can't we all be friends? Does anyone else have one that they want to see? A favorite trope or one that they want to see more of? That you're like, this isn't seen enough. We need more of it. Yeah.
This isn't exactly the same thing. I got into a series. I've been using a bit of Kindle and stuff like that, and got hooked on a bunch of stuff around World War II. And there was a series that there were 3 different books, and I really got hooked on it quite badly. But the author didn't. Well, for instance, one of the characters in the first book, they were an only child, and later there were brothers and sisters. I mean, it was like they really needed to check their facts. And I remember when, this is going to really date me, going back to Fred McMurray, My 3 Sons, that they had like a formula that, okay, these are the names of the people, their birthdays, all that kind of information. How many authors actually do set up that kind of thing so they don't deviate?
What are they called? Are they called continuity experts?
I guess so, yeah. But I mean, I really loved this series of books, but then, particularly in the third one, they were, changing the facts on the people, and no, that person didn't do it. They were in prison at the time.
More fact checking from publishers. We demand it.
I mean, I was really surprised at this.
Yeah.
There were quite a few things like that. I couldn't believe it.
I think, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Dad. Doesn't Star Trek, don't they have continuity experts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, they do.
Nerds do. All right. Anyone else want to? Yeah.
When they accidentally fall in love.
Love that. And they don't mean to? Anyone else? A favorite trope? I'll take anything. Well, that's not true. If you tell me something, I will judge you for it. So be careful.
Happy endings. That's what I want. I want more sadness in my book.
No, you can leave.
I want more books that it's like it ends and you're like, well, jeez.
No.
That's what I want.
No.
Everyone likes to tie it up with a nice little bow at the end. It's like, nah, let's get messy.
No, okay, I am very much an idealist. If it's not happy, you need to tell me beforehand. Like, okay, it doesn't have to be like everyone's on like, kitten rainbows or whatever, but like if it ends in death and destruction, I wasted my time. You know what I mean? I am here for a good time, not a long time. You know what I mean? Like, anyone else? Any faves? No? Okay. All right. Okay. So I will be upfront about this. I will get haters. So, is there a genre that you avoid reading? I avoid reading lit fic like it is the plague. I do not like it. It is, that's a me problem. That is not a lit fic problem. It is a Noelle problem. So, is there a genre that you're like, you know what, not for me?
As a rule, no, actually.
Really? Okay.
No, I'm pretty omnivorous with my reading.
That's fair.
I feel like my least read genre is probably like contemporary romance.
Really? Okay.
Particularly like YA contemporary romance, but I'm open to it.
So
Yeah.
you just don't like happiness?
Yeah, I hate happiness is what I'm saying, guys. Yeah, but
Happiness is a concept. We're not about
yeah,
that.
no, we hate that here. But no, I'll read pretty much anything.
Yeah. I know I was surprised when because as a teen, I was allergic to nonfiction, could not stand it. Now that I've grown older, I actually find that I've read nonfiction that is actually really interesting. Yeah. So now it's more, I just don't read lit fic. I don't know. It's just a thing.
I'll find one.
Listen.
Read Erasure by Percival Everett.
Unless it's like 90 pages, like that one book. Okay, I will read Frederick Bachman. I would consider him lit fic, right? No. Is he lit fic?
Yeah.
He's contemporary fiction. I feel like there's a difference. You know what I mean?
There is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it depends on which of his books.
You know what? That's very true. Because I do not. I don't know. Because like contemporary fiction, I feel like has a point. I feel like lit fic, I read it and I'm like, what? You know when sometimes you're like,
often ends unhappily. I think that's what it is.
what? Yeah, that's very true.
It's too realistic. You're like, nah.
Nah, listen, I read to escape. I do not read to experience the reality. Reality is gone. Is there anyone who wants to out themselves and tell me a genre that they don't like? Or they don't, I shouldn't say don't like, that they don't reach for. That's a very,
any books that like where the main focus is a romance.
Okay.
If it's something like, there's a story that's like the main focus,
Mhm.
if it's a romance on the side, I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
But if it's the main focus,
I don't agree with you, but I understand. I understand what you're saying. I don't agree because I love romance, but I get where you're coming from. I understand your perspective. Yeah. I don't understand your perspective, but I respect your opinion. I respect it.
I can't.
That's fair. That's fair. I love it, so that's more for me. Anyone else? Ooh, okay, yes. We got some haters in the crowd. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm unfortunately saying the same thing. I feel like if I'm gonna read a book, if there's not someone good, if there's not someone like dying,
There are some romances where people die.
or if they're not like literally going through the worst thing possible, and like, they're gonna kill someone else, like that's not that interesting.
We're best friends.
I feel like you just made a best friend and one of my best friends. Yeah?
I will not reach for any like thriller horror.
Oh, okay.
But
You know
I
what?
also will
Okay.
never watch scary stuff because I get scared way too easily. And
I will
especially
say-
if it's paranormal, I'm out. Like
I will say,
I'm good.
so I will read YA thrillers because I notice that they tend to go really quickly, and I'm like, okay, this is like very interesting. If it's an adult thriller, I don't reach for it. Not because I don't like it, but because I don't find them interesting.
Murder mystery is different, but yeah.
Yeah. Did you have one?
Yes. Usually I go more toward, opposite of you, I go more towards the horror.
Mhm.
That's mostly what I write on my free time actually,
Mm-hmm.
is the most, you should not read my journal. It's the most
Okay.
gruesome shit.
Warning received.
It's rated R.
Whoa.
It's not that bad though. It doesn't go that deep. But going to you, like James Patterson type of horror, like that stuff. I will read Stephen King, but when it's James Patterson, it's more like murder mystery that I mostly read. Going more towards the adult genres of horror.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's just horror for adults, it doesn't grab you though, like the same way as a bunch of 20-year-olds writing about someone getting violently murdered.
You know, okay. Hey, we need to have like a little meeting after this. Have a little check-in.
Just don't call the police.
Miss Tara,
What do I not read?
what do you not read? I'll make you say it in front of
All the
everyone.
kids are looking at me.
Yeah. No, they're gonna judge you for this. Yeah, 100%.
What I reach for the least, which
Mhm.
does not mean I don't read it.
No, we have to caveat. That doesn't mean we don't read it. That just means we don't reach for it.
Is
That-
probably historical fiction.
Really? Okay, that is actually really, really common. I am a historical fiction lover. I read it a lot and I really like it. It's not weird.
It's weird that you don't like.
It's not weird.
Like,
I'm normal.
I feel like arguably is like slower.
I don't know why. I don't know why. You know what? I like caught a disease from my father. He gave this to me, my love of historical fiction. I don't know how to get rid of it. It's just, I have it permanently. It's in my genes. It's in my genetic code.
But I'm not mad at it.
Oh, that, yeah.
I'm sure there's a wonderful thing.
I'm sure there's some wonderful historical fiction out there, but I just won't read it.
But I do need to read more so that I can recommend books to my students who like that.
Yeah.
And historical fiction tends to have more male protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
And in publishing, I feel like publishing favors female protagonists.
I will say, I feel like young adult publishing favors female protagonists
Correct.
a lot.
Yes.
But recently I've noticed it get more equal, if that makes sense.
Yes.
There was like a time where it was like 80-20, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The historical fiction, there for a while I was kind of reading, last name starts with Nora, she's written about many historical figures and stuff like that. But after reading them, I get to, wait a minute, what parts of this was real and what wasn't? And I remember, I think probably in my 20s and 30s, I read a lot of the large ones and stuff that were historical, but fiction. And now I don't do it very often because I end up again with, well, how much of this can I believe?
Mm-hmm. See, that's why there's the fiction part in it, because I'm like, wait. Anyone else want to share their opinion on what they don't like to reach for? Yeah.
I'm also...
Are you going to offend me again?
Yeah, but... I am also not a fan of horror.
Oh, okay. I am not a fan either. Listen, I'm not a fan of blood. I hate everything. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like... Okay, no, you go. Sorry. I like interrupted you.
The only horror book... I mean, granted, it's one of the only horror books I've read, but it's one I read in like 9th grade. It's a series called... the first one was A Tale Dark and Grim.
Okay.
Because it was a horror fairy tale story. There was a lot of author comments.
I like that.
Yes.
That's really cool.
The comments were like meant to be comedic and like foreshadow. Like that I could get through because it's like, okay, yes, this is how for me to read.
Yeah.
But I could also know like, okay, there'll be something funny after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to brighten horror with like a little... Isn't it so funny? They died.
That's what makes it worth it, the little crude jokes in the middle of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Any other last minute want to talk about? Okay. Okay. So this is a very simple and yet very hard question. Series or standalone? I know you only write standalones, but like when it comes to what you prefer to read, do you prefer to read series or standalones?
Oh yeah, that's not a hard question for me, standalones. Standalones. I mean, for writing, yeah, brain is too small. I cannot work in more than one book arc.
I feel like, although I feel like with yours, because yours are mainly fantasy, it's, to me, I cannot think of like a lot of fantasy writers who only write like standalones. So I think that's really impressive.
Yeah, thank you. And reading
like the only one I can think of is Margaret Rogerson.
Yeah, Margaret Rogerson.
But I can't think of a lot of other
Ava
ones.
Reed
Right.
does a lot of standalones. Yeah, I mean, in reading them too, like if they're all out, I'll read a series. But the problem is a lot of the time, like with publishing timelines, is the sequel won't come out for like a year and a half after the first one, and then I'm like, but I've forgotten everything I read in the first one.
That's
I don't know. It's such a big commitment. That's why I don't watch TV either. It's like, dear God, there's too much. I need one little story that I can,
Do we have any audience thoughts? Series or standalones? Yeah.
Standalone, because I like most of the time not everything is like explainable. Like most of the stuff, so I like whenever it's like you get a little snippet into it and that's just how it is.
Okay. Love that for you. Yeah.
I just have a question. Would you ever consider writing a series in the future? Would that be something?
The question was, would I consider writing a series? Yeah, I feel like I would love to write like maybe someday a duology because I really love the Naruto is coming out again. But okay, Sasuke and Naruto to me, I know, I apologize for this, but Sasuke and Naruto are the template for enemies to lovers. I will not hear otherwise. So someday I must write an homage to those two. But like, I feel like it needs a duology because.
So we know that when
Right,
you write
what comes
duology, I'm gonna
before.
comment and be like, Naruto?
I know what
question
this
mark?
is.
Yeah,
and
you're
I'll,
gonna be like, I know what this is.
and I'll delete your comment.
You'll be like blocked.
I will block you so that no one can know my embarrassing inspiration. Yeah. Shut up, Noelle. They can't know, but y'all know, so it's our secret together.
Okay, funny that you say that. I actually saw someone compare your A Far Wilder Magic series, which is
Yes, I know what you're gonna say.
to Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Okay, so I love this series. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is literally one of the best animes I've ever watched. Yes, 100%, yes. If you haven't watched it, you definitely should. Do not watch Full Metal Alchemist. It has to be Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. There's a big difference. Big difference. We would be here for hours to discuss it. Oh yeah, but do you agree with that statement? Love it. Confirmed. Okay. Did anyone else have an opinion, series or standalone?
I just want to say, as a teen librarian, I've had kids come to me wishing more fantasy books were standalones.
Yes.
Okay, I can see that 100%.
And I think a lot of kids would be more willing to go into that genre if they didn't feel like it was such a commitment.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying teens have commitment issues? All right.
I think discerning readers do.
Ooh, that was a good comeback. There you go. I love your clapbacks, Tara. They're amazing. Yeah.
I normally read fantasy books, so again, long series, which I do kind of like because it's like several smaller narratives that all come together to make one larger one. But I would like some more standalone because I feel like there's so many times when I have to pause while reading a series for like do some like start another series for like for book club next year. So it's like I feel like it would be easier to have like just a standalone. I could finish it real quick and then I don't have to worry about several other books.
I feel like we need more like fantasy series that are like companion novels, because you know how you can read like romance series and there's like 5 books but you can kind of read them out of order. I feel like there needs to be more of those because that would like please the series readers and also the standalone readers. Came in right here. You heard it here first, folks. Yeah.
One of the things that's kind of interesting to me, back in the 70s, I got to meet Sophie Keatley-Snyder, and she had written a book that my students had read and everything, and I was telling her the kids want another one. She says, I don't write bays. Well, the next time I saw her was, I've got to correct, I'm now working on a series of 3. And I started to realize here recently that around the 70s, this is when they started doing, because it seemed to me most of the children's literature were more or less a standalone book. And now we have, you know, how many, well, what is it, 7 Harry Potters and, you know, all the rest of them.
Yeah.
That has been the trend. And if a kid really gets into them, that's great. And, you know,
I think
it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that is really interesting. I didn't know exactly like the year when people started doing series because I feel like it really it was more recent than like in like, you know, the 1920s, but I think it's really not from like a marketing standpoint, not to like go into that realm, but I feel like with series you get more of like a following and you get more like committed readers as opposed to standalones. Then people can just like stop whenever they want, where it's like a series you're almost like forced to complete it because you want to know what happens.
Yeah, well, she said that her publishers wanted like 3 of them or so, and this probably was about 75 that this came out.
Oh, interesting.
And she'd gotten some awards and stuff prior to that, so she was a little bit in demand, and it was interesting.
That's super cool though. Anyone else? Yeah?
So it's actually another question.
Actually, if we can get to we'll get into audience questions in like 2 seconds.
Okay.
If you can save it, I will go to you first. Period. Yeah. Yeah.
I actually prefer like duologies or trilogies, but I do love a good series.
I would say I like the trend now because I feel like publishers listen when they want. You know what I mean? It's really interesting because before it was like you couldn't get away with having like a 2 or 3 book series. It had to be, you know, 5, 7, however many books. I feel like now they're really embracing the duology, which I really appreciate because the commitment is so low. I actually one of the ones that just comes top of mind is Rebecca Ross's Divine Rivals, which I feel like when trilogies were a big thing, there was that second book slump, which a lot of people noticed. And so they would get really uninterested, and then the third book came out, and then it would just be too long and they wouldn't read it. So the change from trilogies to duologies, I kind of...
All of Rebecca Ross's series are duologies.
Are they? I only know 2.
Because the River Enchanted one.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one.
The one you mentioned is also.
The Queen, yeah, it's a duology. She started the mold. Hey. All right. Does anyone else want to say their preference? Because if not, we are going to go into audience questions. If you would like to ask Allison, I mean, I will take questions too. But if you want to ask Allison a question, you are more than welcome to. So, are we good? Okay. So, Miss Ruth. Yes. What is your question, ma'am?
So, I'm really excited to read this. I was first excited because I just bought it. I was like, ooh, this sounds really good. And she's coming by. I have to read her book. And then, but now that you mentioned Full Metal, I was like, now I'm even more excited. And so I'm curious, what inspirations did you take from it? Because you mentioned that you were, it had like some similarities. Or can I ask what some inspirations you had to include in her? I'm curious.
So for those of you who didn't hear the question, it was about Full Metal Alchemist, which is a very famous anime manga by oh my gosh, Hiromu Arakawa. And what my inspiration was for my second book of Far Wilder Magic. I drew a lot of inspiration from that book. I kind of wanted to write something that threw all of my interests in a blender. And also, like, I had very recently moved to California. So that book is pretty much like a mashup of the Scorpio races, Full Metal Alchemist, and like Half Moon Bay, which I think you can see it pretty clearly. Like every time a Californian reads this book, and they're like, I know where this is. I'm like, yes, you do. Yeah, I mean, I was unsurprisingly most fascinated with Roy and Riza's relationship. The characters in this book are not war criminals, as a matter of fact, so I think the similarities are, not too pronounced, but I mean, I drew like kind of like the baseline personalities as like a starting point for each character, but I think in particular, like, it's alluded to that the two characters have a sort of shared childhood or like early teenagerhood. Like Roy apprenticed to Riza's father and lived in their house for a time. So I was like, that's interesting. Like, we don't see that actually on the page in the manga. So yeah, I think it's kind of glossed over in the anime, but in the manga it's a little bit more expanded. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So this was never a fan fiction or anything, but I kind of took that as like my starting point. And the story kind of ballooned outward from there. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have any more questions for Allison?
Yes.
Okay, so this is gonna kind of go on long. When I don't really write much on my own, I mainly write at school, but whenever I write this, I always like, it takes me a while to like get the starting idea, but once I get going, I like can do it so fast. So I don't really write like many fantasy stuff at school, but one thing I've always wanted to do is run a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Yeah,
But I've been struggling to like get the ideas. So, like, do you have any like tips for like how to get those starting ideas in that goal?
Ooh, the question is like, how do you get an idea going, more or less?
Pretty much, yeah.
An idea for a story or an idea for a D&D campaign. I haven't done a D&D campaign. I would love to, though. It sounds so much fun. But for me, I think, yeah, ideas they're kind of, I don't want to use the word magical, but like, you can do things to kind of like encourage them to come to you. Like for me, like what I just mentioned with my second book, like I would encourage you to think about the things that you really like. Like, since you read a lot of fantasy novels, like what fantasy novels do you really like? Which ones don't you like so much? You can look at the ones you like and or dislike, and like, what would you have done differently? Like, are there side characters who have like an interesting backstory that's not explained that you want to get into? Maybe there's an element of the magic system or the setting that isn't super fleshed out, but you can take that and like transform it into something totally new. I mean, no idea is new. They're really just kind of, I think it was Tolkien who had this metaphor of like the leaf mold, which is essentially like your brain is just layers and layers of like all of the stuff you like, all of the experiences you've had, and the ideas kind of sprout like plants from that detritus. So look at the composition of your mind detritus, and that is where the ideas come
Look
from.
at your mind compost and pick out some winners.
Yeah, I mean,
Got it.
it depends like what kind of writer you are. Like I'm a very character first writer, so like I know my idea has legs when there are some interesting people. But if you're like a setting guy or like a plot guy, I mean, there's lots of avenues to take. Yeah. Thank you.
What character have you written do you share music taste with?
What character do I share music taste with? I cannot say I've ever thought about what kinds of music my characters like. Well, Sylvia likes.
Okay, so when we had Casey West here, she is a known Swiftie.
Okay.
And so when she was here, I think one of the questions, was it you or someone else asked, like, it was probably you, which character likes Taylor Swift the most?
Oh, I see.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Something like that.
If the characters were to listen.
If they were to listen, this is an interesting question. I mean, like Sylvia is probably the only character who like canonically loves like operas and ballets and fancy highfalutin and stuff like that, which I guess I like to a certain extent. But like, if you're asking like which characters are Swifties, like
Oh no, I don't know.
I myself am not, but I think Neve would probably be the most likely candidate, who's the protagonist of Fragile Enchantment. Who else? I don't know. I feel like Wes. I don't know. Like, which of my like the question? Now I have to think about this because it's like my music taste is like you've got me on a little. I like my music taste is like a 60-year-old man. Like who likes which one of my characters is like into dad rock? I don't know. Maybe Wes. I guess.
Which one likes Duran Duran? I feel
Yeah. Who like? Oh man. Oh, good question. Yeah. I don't know. I'll think about this, but yeah. Thank you. Thank you for giving me something to.
So when we see on like your Instagram stories, like, okay, I figured this out.
Yeah,
You know,
I figured
this
it
whole murder
out.
horde,
Yeah,
well,
so it was thanks
that's
to you.
because of other Allison, this is for you.
Anybody else? Yes.
When we're going back to when you said you prefer making the characters rather than like everything else. What's your view on world building, like doing all the settings and placing the entire world around the story? Because for me, it is very difficult and a tedious thing to do. I focus more on the characters and then I do the probably most hardest part about writing. But what's your view on it?
The question is like, what's my view or like approach to world building? This is a great question. I'm the same way. Like I said, characters are always first. So to me, like world building is just kind of in support of character arc. Is kind of my view on it, or like what kind of world would present the most challenges to these particular characters, what kind of world is most suited to them. Like, for example, A Fragile Enchantment is like a Regency inspired world, and I knew that I wanted to write a book about like the particular feeling of being like a chronically ill artist, or like a character who feels like they need to accomplish something that will outlast them. And originally, like, the magic system was glass blowing, so something so fragile and impermanent. And then my agents were like, we're not sure about that glass blowing stuff. How about dressmaking? And I said, okay, I can still work with that. Like, fashion is kind of this, quickly moving, things that come out of season, stuff like that. I know. One day I'll write this glass. I had a vision, y'all, but they did not see the vision. But all of this is to say, it's like, okay, so now that I have these two, I kind of start from like, what do I absolutely know has to be in the book? This person who is a certain way, and usually like their occupation or some element of the setting, and then everything kind of expands from there. Like, okay, so we're doing fashion. What kind of setting would be interesting for fashion? Oh, the Regency period, where they wore 50 outfits every day and they had a dress for every kind of occasion. So and then like what would be an interesting magic system? I don't know, maybe it's hereditary. Where is it inherited from? What are the myths around where it comes from? So I would say like start from your characters and then start asking yourself questions about what how to set up your world from there. I hope that's helpful, but world building is really hard. It's really hard.
It is.
And I think it's something that comes together through revision. So if your world feels a little bit like there's paper people running around in a cardboard box for your first draft, or even like your third draft, it's okay. It will get there. I think you have to work from big to small, and some world building things are big, like magic system, but for the most part, you can add almost anything as you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what drafts are for.
Exactly. Yes.
Do you have a particular way that you come up with your titles?
Ooh, good question. That question is, do I have a particular way I come up with titles? Crying.
I was gonna say crying.
Making a list of words that, I mean, it's different for every book. Like, my debut is called Down Comes the Night. It was always called that. It's from a Fleetwood Mac lyric.
I thought that was
Yeah.
it, but I wasn't sure.
It's from The Chain, so I mean, it was just like it's a great song. It was just kind of like a song that had a thematic resonance with the book, I think, and I just love that phrase, and no one ever asked me to change it, so I was like, okay, I guess this is it. A Far Wilder Magic is actually the book that went through the most title changes. The first title was Salt, Sulfur, Gunpowder, and this is because the magic system is based on alchemy, and there's this concept, I'm gonna blank on what it's called, but basically the three core elements of alchemy are like salt, sulfur, and mercury, and then I replaced mercury with gunpowder because the main character has a gun. And then my publisher was like, Barnes & Noble won't like it if there's a gun on the cover of the young adult novel, and I was like, okay, that's a great point. So we changed it to salt, sulfur, silver, and then people were like, that's hard to say, can you come up with something else? And I said, okay, so basically what I did was I looked for a line in the book that I thought highlighted something of interest, like the theme, and sounded pretty. So that title is kind of a riff on a line in the book. A Fragile Enchantment just appeared to me like in a vision. Like it's all random. Dark and Drowning Tide, I did not name at all. It didn't have a title until like the day we sent it out to try to sell it.
Really?
Yes.
That's so cool.
I'm like, I have no idea what to call this thing, and my agent's like, I don't know, Dark and Drowning Tide, and I was like, sure, sounds great. There's no ocean in this book. It's a river. There's no tides. It's okay. It's all vibes.
It's all vibes.
So yeah, I mean,
all darkness, all vibes.
All darkness, all drowning. We are dark and we are drowning. And there's a tide, even though there's no tide. It's a current. It's okay. So yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just kind of free associating with words, looking at lines in the book, and like honestly asking friends, like, please help me, because I think sometimes we can't name our own children. It's hard to distill it.
If I can have like a little.
Okay, so I recently saw Saba Tahir during her air tour, and the key phrase, like there's like it's like orphan, outcast, prince, I think, or yeah, okay, I think so. And the publishers initially wanted to do prince, orphan, outcast, and Saba was like, that spells poo. And they're like, are you sure that people are gonna notice that? And she's like, well, I did, so we have to change it because I have the mind of like a 13-year-old, and this is marketed to 13-year-olds. That's not gonna work. So it happens. Stuff changes all the time. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about research, but I was curious, when you do your research for things, if it's like a specific niche thing, like, do you interview people or like specialists in that field? Like, I'm thinking of a book that I haven't finished but I started to read by Janina O'Reilly. It's I forget what the first one is called, but the main character is like a researcher for a specific. It's like a specific kind of butterfly, but I was always curious, like, for things like that, do people, like, I need to interview a specialist in that field, like, so that they know all the terminology and stuff like that. So I was curious, like, how you go about your research for things.
Yeah, that's a great question. Just summing up, how do you go about your research, and like, do you interview people? I personally haven't yet, but that sounds like it would be so much fun. Actually, I am similar to the anecdote you shared. My friend is working on a book that features like a giant sinkhole, and she wanted like she actually emailed like a professor of sedimentology to be like, hey, like, I know this sounds absolutely insane, but like, how would you explain this giant sinkhole sudden appearance, and also like maybe like a supernatural sort of bacterium that lives at the bottom of the sinkhole? Like what like theoretically, what would you say would be the most scientific explanation for this? And the professor emailed back immediately like, this is the best email I've ever gotten.
I was gonna say, that's probably the best thing they've ever received in their entire life, being like,
It's like I've been waiting my whole life.
Yes,
I've been waiting my whole life for this
exactly.
moment, exactly.
And I think they went and got like coffee or something because she lived in the area. It was amazing. So I think that kind of stuff can be incredibly helpful. Yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like important to create that sort of sense of realism by like knowing all these terms. I haven't had to do that yet, but I really do hope to. But yeah, I mean, for my kind of stuff, I've just kind of looked up things. Like, I've been very fortunate to live on a college campus, not anymore sadly, but you know, like having all the access to the library, books, and but I still can't. Yeah, Professor Google is very helpful. Sometimes not. Yeah. Yes.
I'm also curious about your process in terms of your conflict or the characters. Do you take any inspiration from people or issues in your real life? And if so, can you tell us more about it?
Yes. The question was like the process for creating conflict between characters and if I draw inspiration from real people or real life. On a like interpersonal level, like probably no, I don't think I've like written anybody from my real life into a book. I mean, I'm certainly like, I think every single character, villain and otherwise, has an element of me in them. I think that's just kind of an unavoidable, unfortunate reality of writing. But definitely there's real world conflict in all of my books. Like, in particular, Far Wilder Magic. Well, actually, the most recent three. Far Wilder Magic is kind of set in an analog of like early 20th century America. So the two protagonists it's a fantasy world, but one is coded the son of Irish Catholic immigrants, and the other is coded Jewish. And kind of the conflict of the book is like this fox hunt, which represents this source of national pride, and so the characters are kind of butting up against nationalistic ideology and grappling with like, being an outsider and who's really American, that kind of thing. Dark and Drowning Tide is another Jewish coded character, kind of set in an analog of 19th century Prussia when the German state was coming together and making these sorts of like, you know, the dark side of fairy tales is not cannibalism, but rather answering the question of like, I don't know, you often hear people say things like, folklore is the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, it's where we come from. And it's like, okay, but who's we? That kind of thing. And A Fragile Enchantment kind of is an analog of British and Irish, or like British colonialism in Ireland. So I am constantly drawn to these themes of like xenophobia, colonialism, and try to explore them in a way that like I have access to. And for me, that's my Jewish heritage and also being Irish as well. So. Anybody else? Yes.
So I haven't read any of your books yet. Is
That's
there
okay.
one you would recommend like starting with? I kind of want to.
Oh, which one would I recommend starting with of my books? They're all very different, so it depends on what mood you're in.
Okay.
For you though, because you don't love like my books do have romance in them, I would say probably the least romance forward one, and also probably, and it does have a journey with a very curmudgeonly, morally gray character as they search for the source of all magic, is A Dark and Drowning Tide. I might recommend that one for you. But if you're in the mood for something fluffy and sunshiny, A Fragile Enchantment. If you want like a Victorian Gothic, Down Comes the Night. And if you want something slow and introspective set in fantasy California, Far Wilder Magic's for you. Yes.
My library assistants frequently make little social media posts to promote books, and I make them do like a 3-word, like either like just capture the vibe of the book in 3 words. So if you could tell me the fragile enchantment, what 3 words would you use for that so I can promote it?
Oh, thank you. Fragile enchantment in 3 words. I would go.
You can go wacky, like, because you'd be surprised at like what's not a blurb that, you know what I mean? Like what's not on the blurb or you can see from the jacket.
Right. I mean, if I had.
Just like.
Whiz.
Or what was it,
I'll
for
stop
plague's
myself
sake?
right there.
Right.
For plague's sake.
I think
For
we're actually
plague's
gonna
sake.
make these teenagers' heads explode if we start using
If I
slang
start,
phrase.
yeah,
I'm so
no, I
sorry.
won't embarrass myself.
It's our job,
and
though.
Everyone else around me. I mean, like the straight up like 3 adjectives, like whimsical, like airy, floral, romantic. That's 4 words. But like if I had 5 words to do something goofy, it's like Prince learns emotions besides hostility,
I'm taking it.
or
Prince learns,
royal wedding goes really wrong. Those are
Prince
the
learns emotions besides hostility.
Yeah.
Sold.
Thank you. That is pretty. Yes.
Do you personally make your book covers, or do you have people make them for you?
That's a great question. The question is, do I make my book covers or do other people do them? So, I do not make them, and that is a very good thing because I have no visual artistic talent. But
This is probably one of my favorites.
it's so
so
gorgeous.
pretty.
What I think surprises a lot of people is that when you're traditionally published, I actually have no say at all in what the covers look like. They do want to make me happy so that I post about them. So they do generally ask my opinion. Like typically how it starts is they'll be like, do you have like a particular vibe you're going for? Do you want to send us like a Pinterest board? Do you have any artists you like? But from there, they pretty much just go into their little laboratory and
Just like punching a few things.
yeah, just cook it up, and then they'll come back a couple weeks later and like, here's a sketch. Do you like it? Do you want to suggest any changes? Yeah. But it's different for everyone. Some authors, like if you're like Stephen King, I'm sure he has a little bit more room to dictate what he would like to see. But yeah, thank you. Anybody? Yes. Yeah.
What about your author coming book? I had that on my TBR, but I didn't know that you were the author. And then I saw
Surprise.
that you were the author going to be here today, and I just wanted to know a little bit about it.
Sure. So my upcoming book in February is called Wings of Starlight.
I'm so hyped for it. The cover's gorgeous, by the way.
It is very pretty. The cover is very pretty. They did a nice job. Yeah, that was one where the cover literally appeared in my inbox, and they were like completely done. And they were like, "Do you like it?" And I was like, "Yes, I love it." So that was good. But anyway, about the book. Who here has watched like the Tinkerbell? Okay, a good amount of people. So this is like a prequel novel to Secret of the Wings, in which, as we know, Queen Clarion and Lord Mallory fell in love when they were young. They were like a thing. And then spoilers for this like 12-year-old movie. Sorry, everyone. Clarion is a summer fairy and Mallory is a winter fairy, and they were in love, but they can't be together because if you cross the border, your wings will either melt or they will freeze and break. It's very sad. And of course, Mallory crossed the border because he was in love, and who can blame him because Queen Clarion's so fine. And his wing broke, and then they decided to forbid the crossing of the border forevermore. But of course, in Secret of the Wings, Tinkerbell and her wacky sister, they solved the problem. But anyway, this book is up before they solved the problem and pretty much explains how these two fell in love. Basically, the plot is that Clarion is a princess, she's a queen in training, and she doesn't feel like she's equipped to step into this big role of being in charge of all of Pixie Hollow, which is responsible for the change of the seasons in the mortal realm. But then when a monster appears on the border of spring, having come from winter, she sees it as her opportunity to kind of prove herself to her mentor and that she's capable of stepping into this role and leading her people. But when she goes to investigate the source of the monster, she goes to the border of spring and winter, and what does she find there? Not a monster, but a winter fairy. It's Mallory, who also is feeling so horribly guilt-stricken about this monster escaping from his realm. But their seasons have not had any contact for hundreds of years. But together, they have to team up and solve this problem and save all of Pixie Hollow and maybe fall in love. They do fall in love. It doesn't end well. I'm so sorry. I cried writing it. So.
Off question.
Yes.